Welcome to this Infosecurity Europe podcast.
I'm Mark Nicholls. I'm the Group CISO of Chime Group. They are a global media, marketing and events and PR agency with around about 2,500 staff covering 40 different agencies around the globe. The sort of stuff they're involved in is big sporting events, major advertising for tier one clients in telecoms and the consumer goods arena, as well as big events for music and entertainers and DJs. I'm very new to the organisation. I only joined them in December of 2020, so I'm now in about week 4. What I'm currently working on at the moment is the information security strategy for the group. This is their new strategy, having never had a CISO previously. I'm also getting to grips with how the business has been managing security previously, where typically it's been an IT function rather than a separate security function. For me, what I find exciting about this role at Chime Group is it's a new sector for me where I'm working. I've never worked in the advertising or marketing sector, so it's brand new to me, and it's something that is a challenge and something to get my teeth into. I'm also excited by the clients that we interact with. We're interacting with some major brands that are known globally, people that I haven't interacted with previously, and understanding what they need from us as a supplier to them in terms of security is something that is really interesting to me. So I started my professional career over 20 years ago, and to begin with, I wasn't in security. I started, like many people, on an IT help desk for a large university. It was a bit of a challenge actually getting that role to begin with, as I'd previously been in the computer games industry working on computer games titles. I was a games tester, and I decided to move into IT, but trying to get a job at a university, the first thing they ask you is, do you have a degree? And unfortunately, I'm non-academic. I didn't have a degree. I went through school and then first of all started work at the cinema and then moved into the games industry. So they were a bit nervous to take me on because typically 99% of the people that worked in university have a degree of some description, and especially if I was going to be working in the IT department, they were looking for a computing degree. So they took me on a 6-month trial. Within that 6 months, I proved my worth to the organisation and moved into a more senior position in networking and looking after network switches and firewalls. And this is where I started in security. I was a firewall engineer, and this was back in the early noughties when really security was about firewalls and antivirus, and that was about it. And I realised, looking after those bits of tech, that this is something really interesting. I saw my job as stopping the bad guys getting in and stealing things, and I found that exciting. So I was looking for ways that we could improve security, and this is probably where I started going to Infosec. I remember going to my first experience in Infosec was probably back in around about 2001, something like that, and it was a very different conference to what it is today. And for someone who was quite a junior person at the time, going into a conference like that, I did find it quite intimidating. But it was also exciting at the same way, seeing some of the new exciting things that were being shown around the event at that time, and all the latest firewall technologies and new antivirus technologies. And we started to hear about these new threats, which, to be honest, aren't really new things. A lot of it was marketing spin at the time, but it excites you when there's these new bits of kits with flashing lights and things on them, and there's a youngster there just seeing some of this stuff and going back to my bosses and saying, oh, we need to buy this, we need to buy this, we need to buy this, and you sort of get caught up in the magic of some of the security elements, and that's what drove me into becoming a full-time security analyst for the organisation. I was their first security analyst, and my role was to look at new security technology and see how we could apply it within the university. I then moved into a security manager type role, where I was looking at more sort of some of the sort of softer side of things, so policy and education and awareness. And from there, I moved into another university where I took on a leadership position. I became head of information security and compliance for a London-based university, and that's where I first started looking after data protection as well, freedom of information act, intellectual property, copyrights, all the regulatory side of security and data and information. I then took a change of sector and went into the not-for-profit sector, working for a housing association. And this was where I took on the role of the first Infosec leader for an organisation which was very low in terms of maturity. And this is the challenge I was looking for. They'd just come out of a crimson red type audit and needed someone to come in to develop the strategy and to actually build the security capability of the organisation. And that was great. And I really enjoyed my time there over 4.5 years, where I effectively took an organisation from zero in terms of maturity up into the higher levels. So security was no longer a side of a desk activity. We had an enterprise capability. We also, my team looked after business continuity and disaster recovery, which was very important in housing, because post Grenfell, we needed to ensure that we had the appropriate response if God forbid there was another type of major incident of that nature that affected us as an organisation. And then to fast forward, I took a complete change and went into the commercial sector, which brings you up to date with my new role at Chime. So I think throughout my career there have been some barriers, and I think that's mainly due to my non-academic status. As I said previously, I didn't go to university. I don't have a degree. Up until later in my career was when I had my security certification. I never had any professional security certifications before that. And I think certainly a lot of organizations, they want to stick 100% to a job description, and you've got to have this certification, you've got to have this degree, you've got to have done this. And I think that it's challenging. Well, it's not only challenging to myself, it's challenging to anyone that wants a career in information security. And I think we as leaders and hiring managers in the business need to play a part in changing that. For me, it's not about how many certifications you've got or what degree you've got. It's about what you've done and how you interact with people. You know, what do you bring to the table in terms of security? I look for people that have an interest in security. They want to do the right thing. For me, I'm very passionate about the human side of security. We talk about people, process, and technology. For me, the people is the biggest element. I mean, not only from an employee standpoint, but also our customers, both internal and external, and those that we serve. And it's those elements which I think make great security people. I'll talk about someone that I hired onto my team when I was working for the housing association. This individual was a career police officer, but they'd got to the point that they wanted to leave the police force, and they had no security qualifications, and they hadn't done anything in information security before. They were a detective working on cybercrime, so they had experience of investigating the types of crimes and dealing with stuff. But other than that, they weren't a traditional someone who's gone through IT, gone through the technical side, where we get most of our security people. But I could tell from the moment that I met the person and interviewed them, they just had that right interpersonal skills and that right fit. I was quite happy to stick them in front of a C-suite member of staff for them to advise them on why they needed multi-factor authentication or the latest phishing scams and things like that. And they've gone on to great things. They left the housing association after being with me for just over a year, went on to a security role in a bank, and they are now head of group security for a major logistics company, global logistics company, which I think is a great testament to them. And when hiring managers are willing to ignore the job description and take a punt on someone, it just shows what can happen. But I think there's more and more people that need to do that. I mean, I went through a period of unemployment recently, and the amount of roles where I got rejected because I didn't have such certification or I didn't have a degree at the very early days is rather disheartening. Now, I've been around for a long period of time, so I just take it on the chin and move on to the next one. But for people that are trying to get into the industry, I can understand why that would really knock someone's resilience if they get knocked back constantly just because they don't have this certification, they don't have a degree, or etc. So I think the biggest career challenge that I still face, certainly when changing roles, I think is the lack of a degree. It is still common practice for CVs to get passed through some form of automatic system, and if you don't tick all the boxes, it's rejection. And I've got to the point now that I feel I have huge personal resilience, and I'm able to move forward and get on and find the right position for me, as I have done with Chime. But it's so common. I think we as an industry and as leaders need to change this, because I think there are so many good people out there, certainly at the entry point. And we keep talking about this cyber skills crisis. Well, no, it's kind of, we've created the problem ourselves by not hiring people in that can do these roles because they haven't got CIS, because they haven't got a degree. That doesn't make them not good at the role. And that's not taking anything away from people who've got CIS but have got a degree. But if we're ever going to overcome this issue where we've got roles that need filling, we need to take a chance, and we need to bring people in. And I find people, in my experience, people who apply for security roles that maybe haven't got the years and years of experience or the degrees and certifications have got a huge interest in the industry, that they go above and beyond when they're actually in role, and they're probably some of the best people that I've employed. So the advice I'd give someone who wants to get into the industry or get ahead is to start talking and networking with people. And I appreciate this can be very intimidating and very hard. And one of the things I want to do, and it's something that, having been on the advisory council for Infosec Europe, is to be involved in some form of mentoring program. I touched on it previously. The first time I went to Infosec back in, I think, about 2001, very, very intimidating environment, very hard. And I think one of the things that I've suggested to the organisers is people like myself offer some form of mentoring, shadowing, chaperone type service. So we'll take you around Infosec, we'll introduce you to people, we'll start helping you build your professional networks. I'm on LinkedIn. I find it valuable for building networks. There's great people to connect with, great people to follow. I'm going to say now and go publicly on the record, hunt me down on LinkedIn, connect with me, and I will do my best to try and introduce you to people. The pandemic has had an interesting impact on the industry as organizations have moved to more agile working to respond. It's created more of a need for security because organizations are working differently, and the way that we protect an agile workforce is different to how we traditionally protected static workforces in offices. So in essence, it's actually created a demand in people, but also there has also been an influx to people to the marketplace, as unfortunately some organizations have not survived the pandemic, and has resulted in a number of people losing their positions and some very good security people being on the market. So it's had a positive effect in terms of creating demand, but there's also been the negative side in terms of people losing jobs. And of course, this has meant for people that are, say, just trying to get into the industry, has found it probably a lot tougher than they probably would have done previously, because whereas roles at say a security analyst type would typically attract, say, 40 or 50 people, they're now attracting 200, 300, 400 people applying for those types of roles. And so it's been very challenging to make sure that you stand out. And I think for those types of roles, having a decent CV that just really sets you apart from the rest is really helpful, because I would say, as having been a hiring manager for a number of years now, when you've got that number of applications, of course you want to read every single one, but you're talking, you may spend a minute, 2 minutes max reading a CV. So it's got to be very impactful in that first half a page of why you're the right person for that role and why you should go in for an interview. To attract and retain people in security, I think we need to take a long, hard look at ourselves as hiring managers and leaders in this industry, and we need to change. There is still elements of elitism, and that's wrong. We've got to be more open, and we also got to embrace diverse teams. People from different backgrounds come to the table and they bring different ideas, which is really, really good, certainly in the ever-changing world that we live in and the different ways of working. I've found in my career having diverse teams that represent the business that you're trying to protect in terms of its internal customers and external customers really, really help. And they bring great new ideas to the table, different ways of doing things. Probably one of the worst phrases in security can be, well, we've always done it that way. And we've got to move away from that. I strongly believe that people are the answer. And what I mean by that is having people that are non-traditional security folk coming in, bringing in different ideas to the table, really changing the way that we do things. The next big thing in cybersecurity, I think, is where we're really going to start leveraging the new technologies, machine learning, AI. Those who follow me know I've always been a bit skeptical about these types of technology because I don't think we're really there yet, but I think we are moving in the right direction. And I've always said this type of technology is going to be great in the right hands, but it can also be a danger in the wrong hands. If you can imagine something like a sustained DDoS attack run by AI technology, is going to be very dangerous. But I think in terms of bringing it back to the people element and how it's going to help, I'd like to think that we can be clever in the use of this technology and seeking out people and recruiting people in, and also giving them something exciting to use in their careers. This is what, if we take back the 20 plus years that I've been doing this, it was the new tech that really got me going, really got me excited. So let's get more of that new stuff in, but combine it with the people element and implement it correctly. For me, there's been some inspirational people in Infosec, and I'm pleased to call them friends, and they're in my professional network. And I'm going to name a couple of them, and hopefully they won't mind. So I'm going to start with Rick Ferguson. I've had the privilege of sharing a stage with Rick. He's a true Hall of Famer, and he is in the Infosec Hall of Fame. Currently the Vice President of Research at Trend Micro, but he is very open to diverse security teams and what it means and what it brings to the table. And he's a great person. Please do follow him on LinkedIn. And I think he won't mind me saying that he's very open to expanding his network and connecting with people. And then also I find as a true inspiration because of what they're doing in terms of giving back, certainly to developing cyber skills in schools, have been Dr. Jessica Barker and Freaky Clown of Sygenta. The work they're doing is amazing, and I think it's really great that leaders in the industry are doing that and giving back to the next generation. These people are going to be joining our workforces. So once again, please do follow them and please do connect with them because they're great people to learn from.
Thank you for listening to this Infosecurity Europe podcast.